Okay, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, wherever you guys are. This is James here from Zeitgeist, and with me is our CEO Logan and Numa, our economic researcher. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, James. Thanks for having us.
Hi, James.
Great to have you guys, and thanks to everyone who's tuned in. We've got a really nice crowd, and we're looking forward to getting through the conclusion of the Kusama Derby. It was a very big month for us. Our testnet campaign was a success. We saw great predictions from everyone who took part. I was really impressed to see how everyone predicted accurately. Slot 1 on the Kusama Parachain auction was, of course, Karura, and then slot 2, Moon River. Everyone predicted correctly. Well done. And now, Logan, our CEO, going to take us through the conclusion, and I'm going to hand over to you to present your screen and run through what needs to be done for all the participants.
Cool. So let's make sure I get this set up right. Okay, cool. Okay. All right, guys, thanks for joining. Super glad to take this opportunity to kind of give you guys an update on the Kusama Derby. So as I'm sure many of you already know, the Derby markets have ended on the 30th, on June 30th. So I'll explain to you kind of what are the next steps that you can do to participate to make sure you get all of the ZTG incentives that you can. And then we're super excited to have Numa here as well to give you a brief intro and some additional information on Rakido. And then we'll answer questions at the end. So yeah, just to give everyone a quick introduction in case you don't already know what Zeitgeist is. So Zeitgeist is an evolving blockchain for prediction markets and futarchy. We're building on Substrate, and we're deploying to the Kusama relay chain at the end of the year. So we're targeting around early Q4 for our mainnet deployment. Essentially we're building out the entire stack. So we're building the layer 1 blockchain that is a permissionless open protocol for trading, resolving, and creating the markets. Along with this, we have the governance of the protocol. So we're using a mix of both token voting as well as futarchy. And we're building out JavaScript libraries, an SDK, and an application that sits at the very top and will appeal to mainstream users. So let's dive right into what the Kusama Derby was. So yeah, just another refresher here. So the Kusama Derby was our first testnet campaign. So what we did was we created the 3 markets for the first 3 Parachain Slot Auctions that were happening on Kusama, and then set up some incentives for people to come participate in those markets, as well as participate in 2 other ways. So through Gleam in a more marketing social media capacity, and through running a node. Operating your own node, and this will kind of help lead into seeding our initial collator set at Zeitgeist. Collators will be the block producing nodes of our network, and we're happy to kind of start up a collator program a little bit later, and have a decentralized network right when we launch. Just to recap, so we had the Gleam portion of the campaign, which was where you initially signed up, open for 2 weeks. And then we had the markets open for about a month and a half. So this is all old news by now. We were able to determine the winners. So sure everyone's already taken a look and probably already knows this, but Karura won the first Parachain slot. The market correctly predicted that from almost the beginning. I think actually from the beginning it did. The second slot was won by Moon River, and then the third slot. Now, because the markets ended before we were able to definitively say who won the third slot, since that auction that's happening on Kusama won't end until Tuesday of next week. We had this catch-all outcome, the none outcome. Now, the market had correctly predicted that none would be the winner here due to the constraints of the market rules. But just to kind of recap for everyone, none applied to essentially any outcome that wasn't covered by one of the teams. So in this case, it won because the market expired before we could definitively resolve it to what looks like the current front runner, which is Shiden Network. Okay, so the next steps of the Kusama Derby markets. So just to kind of get this out of the way. So we won't be giving out the final results yet. So like I mentioned at the beginning, there's still one last thing you can do to earn some extra points during this next week, and then in about a week and a half we'll have another crowdcast with the team, and we'll have by then the final results that we can publish, and everyone can see how many points they earned. So this call, I want to kind of just let everyone know what the next steps are. So for that, all of the people who hold the winning tokens in the markets, so for market 1, anyone who holds Karura token, for market 2, Moon River, and for market 3, the none, can now go to back to the Derby page and redeem those outcome tokens back to ZBP. So, like I mentioned, the redemptions will be open for 1 week from today, so they'll end on July 9th. You can only redeem if you hold one of the winning tokens. Otherwise, all the losing tokens have already been erased from storage in the chains. So they just simply stop existing after the market resolves, and we know who's the winner. And the important part about redeeming is that we're using a points system to award the ZTG incentives, and redeeming will award you 5 points, which I'll break down the point system in a couple slides, but this is a pretty important step. So how to redeem. So I'll quickly do a quick demo on how to redeem. It's actually super simple. I don't think this will take more than a couple minutes. So let me switch over to the Derby page. Okay, so if you hold one of the winning outcome tokens, redeeming is really simple. You just go back to the same Derby campaign page, proto.zeitgeist.pm. Go to the market that you hold the winning tokens for. So in this case, my account has Karura tokens for slot 1. And if we look at the markets, we see that they have resolved. We see that Karura has won market, just like how they won the Parachain slot, and the rest of the horses have been reset to the beginning. So we'll see that right here that we have some information here telling us that the market has resolved and who the winner is, and right next to that is a redeem button. So just right before I click the redeem button, we'll go look over at slot 2, and we'll see this also matches the result of the Parachain slots, which was Moon River winning slot 2, and slot 3, which shows none, since we can't determine definitively who will be the winner of this slot. So let's jump back to the first slot where I hold some of the winning tokens. So essentially all you do to redeem is you click the redeem button right here. It'll prompt you to type your password into the extension. You'll sign that transaction, and once that goes through, you'll get some ZBP. So transaction completes, and my winning tokens get traded in for ZBP, the native token. And that's really all you have to do for redemption. So after you do that, you're all set, and you'll have we'll be able to track that you did that and give you the extra points. So now I'll jump back over to the slides. Okay, so your question might be now, how are we determining the points? So for the test, so for Gleam, it's based on the internal Gleam point system. We'll, again, in a week and a half, we'll publish kind of full information about how that's working. For the nodes, we have we were tracking uptime. So essentially, if you had started on the first day of the Derby campaign and kept your node running up until June 30th, you would get the full amount of points. But if you had your node only up sporadically through that period, or up half of that period, or some portion of that period, you'll get proportionally less points based on your uptime. Now, the most interesting part, because this is where we had the most amount of incentives placed, is probably the testnet participation. So essentially, this is how we're awarding points by these four different actions that were performed, or actually, I guess it's 3 actions in your ending balance. So the first action was getting a token from the faucet. So every time you use the faucet, you'll get 0.1 points each time. So if you came back every day claiming a token every day, I think there was, I don't know, something like 43 days of the campaign, or something like 40 days of the campaign. So you can get like approximately a maximum of 4 points if you did that every day. The next action was making a trade on the market. So this one was after getting a token from the faucet, if you went to the page and used that token to place any trade. It didn't have to be a winning trade, but just any trade. So every time you made a trade on the markets, we'll be giving you 1 point. So these aren't tokens yet. These are just kind of the point system that we'll use to determine the token allocation. Now the redemption part. So what I just went through is 5 points for each market. So if you had predicted the correct outcome and you redeem those tokens, you can get a maximum of 15 points if you predicted all 3. And then the fourth one is we'll track your ending balance on the testnet. So the way we're doing this is for every ZBP, that equals 0.01 point, but we're maxing that out at 10 points. So essentially 1,000 ZBP tokens is the cap for getting points based on end balance. So yeah, we have a script that'll determine the point system. I've already ran this once, but it's not the final results yet. So after the 9th, after the redemption period ends, we'll run that script again and essentially publish that output so people can see the points. And based on those points, the allocation in ZTG that you'll be getting at Genesis. So a couple other things, now that the Derby campaign is kind of sunsetting and ending now. So how can you keep participating with Zeitgeist? So for us, once we take down the Derby campaign, we're currently working on the main application, which is right now going to be the main focus for the immediate future. So there's not going to be a Derby campaign part 2. After redemption, that's just going to be the end of this campaign. But there are a couple other ways that you can stay active in the community. So one way is the collator program. So this has been something we've been talking about throughout the campaign. I talked about this a bit earlier as well. So we're starting this up this month. So the first round of applications will be getting a response. Now we're going to ramp this up fairly slowly, and we've gotten a lot of responses. So if you don't get a response right away, it's just that we're going through a lot of them, and in order for us to scale up, we have to start with a small amount first. So we'll probably have something like 10 or 20 in this first initial set, and then grow that from there. But essentially what this depends on is we're setting up our new Rococo deployment, so our Parachain deployment, the test network Parachain deployment. Instead of being called Battery Park, this new network will be called Battery Station. And we'll be using this network to initiate collators and into the collator program. So how do you qualify for the collator program? So one of the big ways for this initial set, what we're looking for are people who ran their node during the entire Derby campaign period and are continuing to run a node even after the incentives have stopped. So running node is a definite prerequisite for this. Also demonstrating yourself as a competent operator. So we're tracking uptime as well. And essentially, if you have good uptime, that puts you higher up on the list of the people that will be getting a response. So make sure your node has good uptime. But we're also looking at your community engagement as well. So people that have applied to the program that we've seen answer questions in Discord, do social media awareness stuff. This will help you move up to the top of the application as well. And of course, to be considered, you have to, the last point here is that you have to submit an application. So another program that we've kickstarted, kind of in beta, but is becoming a bit bigger now, and you'll be hearing more about this program too, is the Seer Program. So the Seer Program is essentially a community initiative that Zeitgeist is running to support people in the community and help people who want to contribute to Zeitgeist. So there's a few different things that this program involves. One of them are regular calls. So you get a chance to kind of introduce yourself to the other seers in the program, as well as kind of trade ideas and talk about interesting applications of Zeitgeist. There are kind of exclusive mini events that only people inside of the Seer program have access to. And then one of the ways we kind of gamify the Seer program is through earning titles and NFTs. So there's kind of a rank system in the Seer program. So when you join, you start out as an acolyte, and then you can rank up to Seer and to creationist, and there's different roles based on what kind of participation that you do. And each time you rank up, you get a new title in our Discord server, as well as a special NFT commemorating that you've achieved this rank. So this program will have all kinds of ways to support any kind of participation. So anything from design, content, community management, development, research, marketing, anything that you might be interested in helping to contribute to Zeitgeist, this is the program that you want to join. So there's a link here on the slide. The URL is just zeitgeist-seer.com, and you'll have all the information and the application there. So kind of next steps of what we're focusing on from a development standpoint. Now that we're ending the Derby, the main priority now is to implement the full-on application. So with the Derby, we kind of presented this very specialized interface specifically for the Parachain Slot Auctions. But we've also been working on our general prediction market application that'll be an interface into all the functions we provide on the chain layer. So this is currently where we're focusing a lot of time and effort. On the lower layer, so on the chain layer, we're working on implementing the full-on court system for dispute resolution, as well as the Rakido market maker, which Numa will talk about in a few minutes. So these are kind of the main near-term objectives. Looking a bit further out, two more things we're looking to work on after those are futarchy. So currently we haven't implemented the on-chain futarchy aspect of Zeitgeist. So this is what we want to implement before we deploy mainnet. So one of the higher priorities. And also the primitive for combinatorial markets. So we've implemented both categorical as well as scalar. But another thing we want to work on, because it'll make certain applications a lot more nuanced and powerful, is the ability to compose market outcomes. So this is what's known as combinatorial markets. That's also on our roadmap as well. And that's pretty much the update for today. Yeah, like I said at the beginning of the call, this one was mostly an update, just letting everyone know about the redemption period. And the full Derby results will come in about a week and a half.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Logan. And for those of you that are wanting to ask some questions, you'll notice if you're new to Crowdcast that at the bottom of your page is a little button that says ask a question. All you need to do is just hit that, and then you can type your question in there. And so while I'm sure you have questions that you've asked in the chat, unfortunately the chat is really busy, so it's hard for us to try and collate them. So easiest way is to go to that tab there and hit ask a question, and then we'll find it. And the best questions can be upvoted as well. So if you don't have a question but would like to see the best questions asked, because of course we want to respect everyone's time. We said this would be about 45 minutes, so we've got around about 20 minutes left, but let's see how your questions go. And so if you want to get the best questions asked to our panel here, Logan and Numa, then go and upvote those in the Ask a Question panel. All right, so we're going to get to the questions for Logan very shortly, especially after that very cool roadmap. And we'll come back to him shortly. But for now, Numa, I want to ask you a couple of questions. Why don't you introduce yourself to the community? This is your first public viewing to the Zeitgeist community. So just tell us a little bit about where you're from and who you are.
Well, hello everyone. My name is, I'm Numa. I'm from Argentina, and I'm in charge of the researching economics of Zeitgeist. And we recently developed the Rakido scoring rule. So yeah, we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, man, we're really excited about your involvement and your research paper that you've just released. Now, for those of you that, or for those that don't yet fully comprehend why Zeitgeist as a protocol needs an AMM model. AMM, of course, stands for Automated Market Maker. These are economic models that are very common within smart contract-based financial ecosystems and decentralized finance ecosystems. Just tell us, what is an automated market maker, and why would Zeitgeist need one?
Okay, yeah. I would like to first start from the let's start for outside the blockchain world. When we talk about a market, the market is the place where buyers and sellers meet, right? The demand and the supply. However, something that is not usually clarified is that within the market there may be frictions to prevent the supply and demand to formally meet, meaning concluding the operation. The most common situation is when the price proposed by buyers differs from the price proposed by sellers. And for this situation, there are market makers. Market makers existed before blockchain, and what they do is to quote two prices in a certain pair of assets, thus creating a market. It will be some kind of mediator. At the same time, they get a remuneration of the difference between these two prices, and this is called a spread. But traditionally, these market makers are were usually institutions or companies with an interesting amount of capital, right? The problem with these traditional market makers is that they are human. And what do I mean by that? This implies that they may not always use the same mediation criteria, changing the rules of the game according to what they may seem convenient. And this is where automated market makers come in to save the day, right? Automated market makers are smart contracts that provide liquidity via liquidity pools. And its behavior here will vary depending on the market mechanism used. But this mechanism has to be considered judiciously because its function must not only propose the best possible price for buyers and sellers, but it must have the ability to generate a spread that allows rewarding liquidity providers in the best way, since thanks to them, the market can work, right? Because they provide the liquidity necessary. So Zeitgeist needs an AMM to be able to allow traders to buy market shares at a reasonable price at a reasonable time, but also to be able to reward liquidity providers.
All right, man. That's a really nice and succinct answer. Now, tell us about this specific scoring rule, which has been aptly called Rikido, which is Japanese for liquid. Why is Rikido important for Zeitgeist?
Great. Rikido's main idea arose after investigating many types of market mechanisms and reaching the conclusion that we did not find something that fits our needs. That is a market maker that allows for liquidity providers to obtain profits and that has the sufficient autonomy to be able to regulate on their own. The market makers that we had investigated generally fell into two large groups of unwanted conditions. The first one was the great impermanent loss, as in the case of traditional constant function market makers, where the structure of the market mechanisms implies that the liquidity providers has to constantly monitor its situation in order to not lose its funds. This is clearly something that we don't want. And on the second place, the presence of fixed parameters. And by this, I mean rules that do not have the ability to dynamically adjust to the market variations in question. Most of the scoring rules that we have observed, if not practically all of them, have parameters that must be adjusted manually after significant variations in the market. And what do I mean by that? Imagine a market, for example, a particular case. Let's talk about soccer, because I'm Argentinian. Now let's talk about soccer. A couple of months ago, here in Argentina, we had a situation with River Plate, a soccer team, which days before a game declared that 20 of its players had tested positive for COVID, including all of these goalkeepers. And the authorities claimed that the match was going to happen anyway. So this situation clearly sends a significant signal to the market, and under these rules we mentioned, we will have to put together a new one every time something like this happens. This is an exaggerated example, but there are a lot of signs that the market sends that usually can change the perspective of the market. So this is a single this for a single market, it could be possible, but clearly represents a scalability problem, since the greater the number of markets, the more work will be done to vary these parameters. So, evaluating this situation, we decided that the best thing will be to create a new scoring rule that will be able to possibly that we have the possibility to dynamically adapting to changes in the market in order to encourage interaction with it at times when the market is calm, and mitigate the operation carried out in moments of high volatility and high volume trades, because this is generally related to interpretations of sudden signals given by market or with speculative behavior. And the reason why we propose this is because normally the profit of people who occasionally buy in search of profit is given by profit loss of the liquidity providers. And we would like that this thing will not happen. And by this, I'm not referring to people who buys in order to give their opinion, but in order to imagine arbitrages, things like that. So in short, Rikido is important to us because it represents a scalable rule that is liquidity sensitive and dynamic, and which allow us to provide the best outcome as possible to liquidity providers.
Brilliant, man. Fantastic. I really liked your example of bringing it home for people, especially in Europe and South America, to understand about the soccer example. Being English myself, I'm very, very aware about those kind of scenarios. And to everybody that is watching right now, I'm just putting in the chat the link to Numa's research. It's a great paper. It contains links to a number of other papers as well, which really will give you some great reading and understanding of automated market makers and this specific model that has been designed by the Zeitgeist team, which has been a joint effort by Numa and the rest of the team. It's really been amazing to watch. Numa, we're going to head over to some questions. Just before I do you have any final comments?
No, I encourage everyone who didn't have the possibility to read the blog post yet to go and read it. I'm on Discord and I'm on Twitter, so if everyone has a doubt after this live stream, they could reach me in that way. We will be reaching out soon, so thank you, everyone.
Fantastic, man. Thanks so much, Numa. Okay, so I'm going to invite Logan to come back on and switch his video and microphone on when you can, please, Logan. We're going to get to the questions. And for those of you that haven't asked a question, I invite you to head on over to the button that says Ask a Question. And in that section, upvote your favorite question, because that'll help us get through the best ones. And if you see a question that you, or if you see that there is a something that you'd like to ask that hasn't been asked yet, then get in there and ask that question. So we're just going to look around for where Logan is right now. I wonder if I need to invite him back. So let's have a look. There we go. I'm going to invite him back. So when he's able, come and join us, Logan. And we'll get to some of those questions. And he's connecting now, so that's great. All right, welcome back, Logan. So the first question, guys, is around Parachain Slot Auctions. This is pretty self-explanatory, but worth mentioning, I guess. Will Zeitgeist be participating in auctions for a Parachain slot? If so, what would be the likely timeline?
Yeah, so we are planning to participate in the Kusama auctions. So our timeline is for either late Q3 or early Q4.
All right, so yeah, that's going to be really interesting and going to be nice and busy for us around the Zeitgeist headquarters. And the next question, if you keep a node, but you don't get into the list of collators, will there be rewards for running a node?
So we haven't released any information about further rewards. So there's no confirmed rewards. We could always retroactively go back and reward based on participation. And we do encourage nodes to continue operation, especially if you want to join the collator program. But there's no confirmed rewards.
All right. And this one's a really interesting question, which Numa, you may want to chime in on as well. Game theory in prediction sounds great. I was interested in the concept of the project. I think that the prediction market is a very promising direction. I would like to understand more in which industries the predictions will be made and when the product is planned to be commercially launched.
I think that defining an industry maybe creating a reduction, because the possibilities that prediction markets have are really almost infinite, because imagine every aspect of your life, like governance, like your job, like sports events, that needs the opinion of someone. This prediction market is just a way to propose like the opinion of experts on some specific topics, and based on that, the options are nearly infinite. So saying just one example is just reducing, but for example, imagine governance, or imagine, for example, the economic budget decision, and how much we could invest in health, how much we could invest in education, or, for example, the decisions of a governing board of a company. So the decision of prediction markets, or the implication of prediction markets, it's a huge change of the paradigm of traditional decisions. So based on that, based on the on the land that we could possibly reach, we are not completely sure about how much we could reach. We know that we could reach a lot of fields, but it will just depend on the people trusting us and giving us the possibility to be part of their decisions and prove them that prediction markets is such an effective way to give right predictions about future success.
Logan, would you be able to answer that second half of that question by Sergey, which talks about when the product is planned to be commercially launched? I mean, I know that could be years down the line, but do you have any kind of vision for when you'd like to see commercial application of this kind of product?
Yeah, I mean, so like this will be something that we want to start doing like basically from mainnet launch. Like we're working on the application like to deploy to the testnet now. And we should have that ready by the time we do mainnet deployment. And for like, yeah, I would call it like commercial use. Like as soon as we have a live network with tokens that have economic value, you can use the application for commercial prediction market use.
Let's get back to the Derby now. This question from Erba, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Erba or Erber, depending on where you're from. The question is around Parachain Slot Auction 3, and it asks, are the votes for Scheiden, and assuming Scheiden is the winner of Slot 3, obviously it's looking very strong, but are the votes for Scheiden counted as winning votes, considering the Kusama Derby is ending before the third auction gets won?
Yeah, so so I talked about this a little bit earlier during the presentation, but due to the constraints of the Derby campaign and the fact that the market ends before we can definitively resolve the third slot for Scheiden, even though it looks like Scheiden is the leader and will most likely win, since the market ended before we can make that call definitively, the correct outcome for this specific market was none, since we don't have a definite answer by this time.
All right, so an easy answer to that is, unfortunately, if you voted for Scheiden, then it won't be counted as a winner in that specific slot auction. But if you correctly voted slots 1 and 2, then you will gain the points there. Then let's try and stick. I'm going to try and stick to some Derby questions here. How are we going to get back the tokens we bet for the Derby, and what are we going to get back? So this one comes from Florian, kind of similar to what you presented, Logan, but maybe just a brief summary to answer that. How are we going to get the tokens back that we used, and what are we going to get back?
Yeah, so for any winning token, you can now redeem that back to the ZBP, the native token of the Zeitgeist test network. So you just go back to the application page, and if you have one of the winning tokens, you'll see the redeem button. Again, earlier this call, I went through that, and you just click that button and you'll get back the ZBP. Yeah, so to that question, I would encourage you to rewatch this video. Logan ran through exactly how to redeem those tokens. Very simple, but if you want clarity, just rewatch this stream, which is on this link. It's very simple. This is an interesting question from Sergey again. He says, is there any chance that the test tokens will turn into real coins? No, No, the test tokens are purely test tokens. They won't ever be real coins.
All right. And then this question is interesting. There was one about Futarchy from Jakub Hydra. And I think this we'll wrap it up shortly. But Jakub Hydra asks, how can Futarchy be used for other projects? I wonder if you guys can answer that question, which is an interesting one. You know, how would you see Futarchy being used in other projects and deployed in other projects?
Yeah, so I see it being used in the same way that we plan to use it on Zeitgeist, with the possible difference that it might be a bit more difficult to make binding decisions based on the Futarchy, in the same way that we're able to, since we have control over the runtime code, the logic of the chain. We can make the Futarchy binding, so the results of the prediction market binding, and how it changes the protocol. For other projects, depending on kind of the compatibility, it might be a bit more difficult to make binding decisions. But as far as creating Futarchy for signals, it'll be almost exactly the same as just creating a prediction market for a governance topic. So since Hydra asked that question, I do see like the possibility of potentially other parachains implementing binding Futarchy on Zeitgeist. This is because we have XCM and we can do cross-chain binding transactions. But this is definitely something that we would explore and we could talk about.
Okay, 2 more questions, guys. I think we'll wrap it up in 2 more questions. A question for you, Numa. How did you come up with the name Rikido?
Oh, in fact, was Logan's idea, because the original name of Rikido was is liquidity sensitive dynamic logarithmic market scoring rule, and it's not quite name to say, or sorry, a real nice name to say. So we were discussing different variations, and while Rikido is the Japanese for liquid, so the main characteristic is this liquid, the liquidity, the liquidity feature, and I think that this nice thing about liquid that it can adapt to everything. Like if you watch the Bruce Lee sentence of be water, my friend. So yeah, so that's what's the main reason why.
Brilliant. So I know I said 2 questions. I'm going to say 2 more now. This one's interesting, and Logan, you're welcome to add your comment, but I think it's an easy answer for me, at least, in communications. The question is, will Zeitgeist platform support predictions for sport events, or is it aimed for crypto events? What benefits does the project have? Well, I can answer that prediction markets can be used across a number of different industries, including sports. So yes, indeed, prediction markets can be implemented for sports. It is different to gambling or betting, because the way I see it and understand prediction markets is that it's an incentivized prediction that you're making. This isn't a punt or a wild card bet. You actually need to make an informed decision, a very informed prediction. And so you really want to utilize as much data you have available before making that prediction. And that can be applied to sports. So, you know, we've seen a number of teams across a number of different sporting codes implement data-based decisions, and they end up becoming very successful. And so if you implement that in your prediction, of course, you're going to benefit from that. Logan, I don't know if you want to add any comments outside of other areas that prediction markets can be utilized.
Yeah, I think like Numa hit the nail on the head a bit earlier when he said that the potential space for prediction market application is nearly infinite. Like we can for sure use it for sports, politics, esports, governance decisions, kind of the usual cast of characters. As far as like so as far as like how Zeitgeist can be used, it can definitely be used. We want it to be used for any generic. We want it to be generic enough to be used for any prediction market application. So and yeah, and all of them basically.
Awesome. And what about this one, guys? Last question. We're going to wrap it up here. We've almost been an hour. Last question here. Who are your competitors in predictions? Number one, and how can you evaluate their projects? So it's kind of like a double-barreled question. Who are your competitors in predictions, and how can you evaluate their projects?
Yeah, so I guess so you can consider like competitors of Zeitgeist. They're like in a few different like classes. Like there's like the decentralized blockchain based competitors, and then there's the more traditional kind of centralized Web 2.0 competitors. So we mostly look at the more traditional Web 2.0 prediction platforms as our competitors more than we look at the Web 3.0 prediction markets. And the reason we do this is because we think that the most usage, like the best user experience, like everyone's still using the Web 2.0 prediction platforms. There hasn't been a lot of adoption on Web 3.0 ones yet. So we're essentially looking to kind of attract a lot of the user base that are using the Web 2.0 platforms onto Zeitgeist by providing great user experience, better primitives for prediction markets, and stuff like that. And then the second half of that question was how can we evaluate their projects? I mean, by using them. So I think we use other prediction markets applications. That's how we evaluate them.
Awesome. All right, guys, I think I'm going to leave it there. Thanks so much to everybody for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us everywhere, Twitter. We are on LinkedIn as well. Of course, our blog, sign up for our blog where we send out newsletters regularly. And often you'll get those updates before they get released on Twitter. I am going to post our link tree here in the comment section there. So be sure to go and visit that to follow all our profiles. Also want to give a shout out to Subsocial. We are on Subsocial, which is a substrate-based social network and sort of media platform. So we are there as well. We have a presence and we post there fairly regularly. We'd love for you to check that out as well. Yeah, and that's it from myself, James. I'm going to sign off with final comments. Let's start with Numa. Any final comments from you, man?
No, well, thank you all for being here. It's really important to us. I think that the three of us really appreciate that you guys were here listening. And for my side, I will be reaching out to with more research in the short term. So stay tuned.
Awesome. And from yourself, Logan? Yeah, just a big thanks to the community. Like we've seen with the Derby campaign, we've seen a lot more activity than we expected when we set that up. And yeah, so just thanks to everyone who's joined the community over that time and has been a part of the community. Great stuff, man. And just tell us, I have to ask this question, Logan, you're based in Germany, right? How is everyone feeling after Germany lost to England? I wouldn't know. I didn't even realize there was a game.
too busy with your head down working, man.
Not a big sports fan, yeah.
Well, guys, thanks so much. To Numa, good luck to Argentina playing football tomorrow night. And guys, thanks again. And we'll see you on the next crowdcast. Please join us, everyone. Sign up. 14th of July. We're going to collate all the results. We're going to release all the data of the Kusama Derby. 14 July. That's Wednesday. We will announce exactly what time on our social media and on our various community platforms. So please join us then. Until next time, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you on Twitter. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.